The Godfather, one of cinema's greatest achievements. The American crime epic duology spanning over 6 hours in length, complete with flawless storytelling, 3 of cinema's best performances, beautiful locations, unforgettable lines, and iconic moments. So I have a few films that I watch annually as they are my favourites of all time. Star Wars, Shawshank, The Dark Knight, Pulp Fiction, Predator, Aliens, Whiplash, Jaws, Back to the Future 7, and of course the Godfather films. However, since watching them for the first time when I was 13, I'd only viewed part 3 once. Why? Well, because the online mediascape is so brutal now, and as an impressionable young youth, the spectrum of hyperbole beat it into my head that this film was somehow bad. So upon my annual revisit and finishing part 2, I popped in part 3 and watched it for the first time in 7 years, and well, I'll get to that. But first, before we start, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to The Young Cynics. Your support will be so great for a small channel. So look, now I know it's rich for me, a young guy in uni in Australia, to critique the works of one of the greatest screenwriters ever, but look, is Godfather 3 bad? No. Alright, thanks for watching guys. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Young Cynics. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram, and until next time, bye! What? You want me to justify why a film written and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Al Pacino and Diane Keaton, which was nominated for 7 Oscars, isn't bad? Fine. The problem is, where this film is an easy 7 out of 10 minimum, well, Godfather 1 and 2 are easy 10s to give. Now I know that you can be an arsehole and point out little continuity errors or filmmaking mistakes like this jigsaw puzzle piece on the screen in a CinemaSins-esque way. However, I like to consider my criticisms a little more refined, and when I look at parts 1 and 2, they're perfect. I know critiques always say, there's no such thing as a perfect movie. Bullshit, these 2 films exist. But when we get to part 3, let's break down what exactly doesn't work with it. So right from the get-go, there's a noticeable time difference in the introduction of the actual plot, whereas both Godfather 1 and 2 allowed us to enjoy the party and get acquainted/reacquainted with our characters. Godfather 3 just jumps straight into the story, dropping a fair bit of exposition right out of the gate. Now, I know that these stories have always thrived off their intricate stories and masterfully weaved plot elements, however, it was very simple to follow in those first films. Meanwhile, there was so much exposition to give out in the third part. The whole plot of the Catholic Church, the introduction of Vincent, Michael and Kay's relationship, the relationship between Vincent and Mary. Jesus Christ. Just a side note, I feel so sorry for Sofia Coppola. You read about it and she really didn't want to do this film, but was pretty much forced to after Winona Ryder said no. And her performance definitely comes off as someone who isn't especially comfortable carrying such a large chunk of the story in front of the camera. But thankfully she made the brilliant Lost in Translation, so she won in the end. But on top of those plot points, there's another 10, and there's simply too much happening in it for it all to meaningfully resonate with the audience. The film's pacing is also draining as well. The first 2 films kept switching between the characters who were all brilliantly written and interesting. However, when The Godfather 3 just focuses solely on Michael's epilogue, it doesn't have quite the same punch. Now, the screenplay is of course excellent. However, once again, it does fall down a rung in terms of quality. In the originals, the characters were real. They talked like real people. These weren't actors. However, in Godfather 3, everyone talks with a sort of epic movie inflection that can work for some films. Shawshank Redemption has this style of dialogue where every sentence feels like it's being read from a great book of poetry. That paired with Morgan Freeman's narration makes it perfect. But there is a noticeable difference in delivery. Even Pacino at this point had become so much bigger than Michael Corleone. And for this film, he's really trying hard to bring it back to 70s Pacino, but that was simply not who he was anymore. Now he was Mr. Ooh-ah himself. But this film is very good. The dialogue, although sounding a little too cinematic at times, is still riveting. I definitely appreciate the further exploration of Michael and his family. I like Andy Garcia as Vincent. Diane Keaton is amazing, so is Pacino. The cinematography is beautiful. The finale at the opera is brilliant. Yada yada yada. However, I feel like there could be a better version of this film. That's right, Mr. Coppola. This is where I put my fucking money where my mouth is. And yes, we're going to rewrite The Godfather Part 3. Also, just a disclaimer, this is a story idea, no dialogue, because I feel like there are definitely people who know these characters a lot better than I will. Now, the thing is that Puzo and Coppola didn't want the film to be called The Godfather, and instead be The Death of Michael Corleone. And it makes sense. This film doesn't feature Vito, and that seemingly is the proper criterion for a Godfather film. So in my version, this should have been the same telling, much like how The Godfather 2 was told in 2 parts. Have this one be the same. One half of the story can be the continued story of Michael, trimming down some of the fat from the original stories, however taking place in later stages of his life, rather than that age that Pacino was at the time, much like how Brando was 48 when he played Vito. All the while cutting to the prequel style story of Vito and build on what part 2 set up, telling the story of his full rise to power and how he came to be so respected, because you still had another decade to work with at that time, therefore telling a story that mirrors the first film taking a cycle by having Michael fit into the Vito role of an aging Don, while you have Vito take the same role of Michael in parts 1 and 2, showing the corruption of power brought on by this position. So there's my little idea for what Godfather 3 should have been. What do you guys think? Should they have changed it, or do you like it as it is? So thanks for watching, guys. Please make sure you like, share and subscribe to the Young Cynics, and I have almost completed a very special project of mine, which I can give you a sneak peek of here and hope to one day share it to you. So please make sure to like, share and subscribe to the Young Cynics once again, and until next time, bye.